yet.
Oh, I see.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Hello. This is Andrea Thompson. I'm hosting this live chat with all the Milwaukee directors and the Film Girl Film Festival right now. And no, that's not a weird thing. I'm not on camera right now, but everyone else is. So I'm going to ask the ladies to go around and introduce themselves and give a brief synopsis about what their films are about. Right, Robin, why don't you go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Robin Ehrlich. I directed the short film A Period Piece. It's an experimental narrative in 3 short vignettes that explores how people who experience, or what the different ways that people can experience blood, mostly in reference to menstruation, and how menstruation is depicted in the media. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Shalise, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name right.
Oh, you're on top of it. How you doing? You good?
Yes, I am. How about you introduce your film? Brief synopsis.
Legal Threat. I'm Shalise, and it's Legal Threat. It's essentially about a guy who inherits innocuous or dangerous information about the corporation that he is currently employed with. So, kind of like an allegory kind of thing. Get into it.
Yes. Yeah. And next up, we have Amber.
Hi, I'm Amber Rose McNeil. My film is Normal Porn for Normal People, and it is an experimental horror short that looks at the way that North Americans consume violence, kind of like pornography.
Mm-hmm. And Lauren?
Hi, my name's Lauren Barker. I'm the writer and director of Cohabitation, which is a feature-length thriller about a former paramedic with PTSD who gets a new roommate who has a vendetta against medical personnel.
Very single white female vibes.
Yeah.
And Paula?
Hey, I'm Paula Lobo. My documentary is short summer school, and it's about the high school interns that worked at True School over the summer and all the dope projects they did.
All right, and last but by no means least, Marissa.
Hi, I am the writer and director of You Can Go Now, a short film in the Milwaukee block, and it explores the idea of what it's like and how your world changes when you face sudden tragic news, which is something that's very difficult to put into words. So I'm taking on the challenge of trying to do it visually. So.
Okay, and all of you have such excellent films in the fest, so I'm going to try and give equal attention to all. But this is a women's film fest, and Robin, so I feel like it's best to start out in a totally non-stereotypical way and talk about our periods. So, Robin, a question about your fest, why this project? Your film starts out very funny. It is very much a commentary on how we're trained to view blood. You start off like a horror show, and then you go into the menstruation aspect. So why that approach?
I mean, I was definitely on a real horror kick when I was starting like pre-production of this film. And I for a while I've been really interested in the way that like women are depicted in horror. A lot of my influences were like the Slumber Party Massacre, and
love that one.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I was really interested in like the sorority girl, like, I don't know, that trope. And I was watching like the film Blowout, and it starts with this like movie making scene of a bunch of screaming girls running through a sorority house, and I was really inspired by that imagery, but I wanted to sort of subvert it and apply it to something that's horrific sometimes, but also kind of comforting sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very subversive and very funny. So yeah, I'd say in my completely biased opinion, it was accomplished. And Shaylise, after I watched your film, I had one main question. Is there any hope in the world? I mean, I mean,
well, I mean that's kind of a subjective thing.
yeah, I mean, this thriller just shows, just you get the sense that there is just that the truth is so malleable, even in our supposedly open, like 21st century world, and that. So why'd you decide to like take that approach to things? I'm really curious.
Well, I guess my opinion is that I've come to the realization that it seems to me that people really gravitate towards lies, and they love lies rather than what appears to be the truth. But then I think that the truth, but then again, is subjective. So, I mean, so that's kind of, I mean, the movie is kind of, it comes from a lot of different places, but that's one of the things. But I guess the other thing is just kind of I guess, an analytical stance on the little guy, So I think that I was kind of trying to talk to the fact that it seems to me that the reason why people can't get anywhere is because they have the overwhelmingly sense to want to exalt themselves over another group of people. And so, I was just trying to touch on, I think, the human condition in a sense, in that way.
Yeah, that definitely comes across, the subjectivity of the truth and everything in that film as well. And Amber, your film Normal Porn for Normal People, like that is quite interesting, because yeah, watching your film, you could really feel like the commentary on violence and how people are trying, like it just seemed a special commentary on, you said, the American way of viewing violence and how we seem to like embrace violence and like villainize sex and porn. So yeah, can you kind of tell us how you kind of took that approach and why you decided to kind of make this film? Because you're Australian, right? Because just so you're coming from an outsider's perspective on this, in a sense.
Yeah, I'm Australian. I've lived in the US for 6 years, 5 years in LA, and then a year in Milwaukee. But yeah, I mean, the way that I grew up in Australia, sex at that time, there wasn't this puritanical approach to it. It was just kind of normal and what you did, and not out there in like, everyone's having an orgy, but it wasn't, it wasn't villainized the way that it is here. I mean, we still have issues with violence, and violence is consumed in the media and entertainment in a similar way that it is here. But just coming to a different culture where sex is so villainized, but violence is so elevated and glorified, is something that really bothers me. And censorship in cinema bothers me for the same reasons. The same, there's an old adage that you can slice a breast off, but you can't kiss it, in terms of ratings. So yeah, I really wanted to kind of dig into that, by taking existing media and kind of like mashing it all together to create a commentary.
Yeah, you use footage, a lot of footage from interviews with real life serial killers too. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting, and they tried to like blame porn for their actions as well.
Yeah,
in some of these interviews.
Yeah, when you have a society that allows you to do that and demonizes sex, it's really easy to kind of go, oh, it wasn't me, it was pornography. And, scientifically, that's been proven to be bullshit. So we all know it's not true, but it's easier to believe the lie than the truth, because the truth is harder, as Shaylise was saying.
Right, girlfriend.
And Lauren, like, which of your roommates hurt you? Who hurt you, Lauren?
Surprisingly, none. I've actually had pretty good roommates. Aside from like my random roommate in my dorm in college the first year, who was just kind of just very different from me. But yeah, other than that, I've had really good roommates. So yeah, it wasn't really based on that.
So why this approach? So why the story then? What gave you the idea to create a story basically about the roommate from hell?
Well, I thought it was interesting to kind of examine the idea of the fact that you might not know your roommate very well, and that you, the person that's closest to you, physically, might be like the most dangerous, or there's the idea that you just might not know them very well, which is kind of unsettling, because we all, or a lot of us, have had roommates or had to live with people for different, under different circumstances and stuff. So I think that's, it's kind of playing with that idea that's, easy to like think of such a normal thing, and then looking like, oh, what if this was really dangerous,
Yeah, a reviewer I showed your film to, she said, "This movie is why I don't move in with people I don't know."
Okay.
And Paula, your film is about True School and a lot of the activities they do and the kids that work with them. You're a part of True School, correct?
Yeah, I'm the digital storytelling instructor.
Makes sense. So why'd you decide to like make the short film, I guess, and focus on the activities you did?
Well, I think COVID, paused a lot of things and had changed up a lot. So that included changing up the summer programming, and usually it'll be like 20 young people, like in the space doing work and all the stuff. It was condensed, and they were 8, but they were still out in the community, working on gardens, doing projects with different in the city. So I think it was important to highlight that amidst the pandemic, they were still doing a lot of creative work and work to beautify the communities that we're in.
While wearing masks, I saw.
Yeah, definitely.
And Marissa, your film, which was about death and basically just death. Where did that come from? Because it's obviously a very personal film, a very quiet film, and it definitely holds your attention. So I take it this come from an autobiographical place.
It does, yes. My hope for the film was that it wouldn't feel autobiographical, but I thought it was important to use myself, my own journey, to make it feel authentic and try and get the point across. Death is somewhat of a taboo issue to talk about, and I feel like part of the reason for that is people don't know how to express how they feel about it. They don't know how to necessarily comfort somebody when they haven't been through it themselves. So it's just kind of a strange thing to approach in general. And so kind of the purpose for the film was really to try, at the end of the day, hope that people watch it who haven't experienced that or have a loved one that has gone through something and they just really can't connect or really understand how they feel, walk away from the film and say, I feel more like I understand what my wife feels like having her dad die last month, or those kinds of feelings. And that can be really hard to do in words often. So I thought using an actual storyline, but pairing that with a lot of surrealism and symbolism to get across the emotion visually, as you would in a painting or some other kind of visual format, and hope that it would render some true kind of guttural reactions from people. So
I think that'll definitely be the case. And I wanna open it up to more like less structured chat, and because we all have very different perspectives, I think, but I think we've all really encountered the obstacles due to like gender in the film industry. So can you kind of guys like share about that, whether it's in Milwaukee, or do you feel like you being a female filmmaker, kind of, how is that female perspective impacted you? Have you experienced obstacles in regard to that, or? What do you guys think about that? Because I personally am not a filmmaker, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely have faced obstacles. A lot of times, if men are attracted to you, they don't take you very seriously, or they dismiss. I know there's a saying that like men need to learn to respect women they're not attracted to. I think men just need to learn to respect women in general.
Yeah.
You know, being dismissed just because somebody can't control the way they feel about you. It's really shit, and not being taken seriously and having to work like 5 times as hard just to be taken as seriously as like a mediocre man. Yeah, that's really frustrating.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll say that I've worked on quite a few different sets that over a variety of different types of work, and I've definitely had just like a more liberating and freeing and kind of just comfortable experience on the sets where there weren't any men. Like my film, A Period Piece, there weren't any men who like involved really at all. I mean, my 12-year-old cousin composed the score, but that doesn't count. Yeah, I don't know. It's always been very strange, and I'm a little bit removed from it because I feel like just COVID, I haven't really thought about what it's like so much. But even just I work in a video content creating setting, and at work I'm the only woman or just not man. And it's hard because I'll say something and I know that it's right and they will not believe it or not even really hear it until a man says the exact same thing as me, and then it's like, oh, he's right, but I said it 20 minutes ago. So I don't know, it's not a nice feeling.
Yeah, as a writer, I really like female editors more than male editors, I have to say. Generally, like if I said one time I said something, when my male editors comment on gender in one of my articles, my male editor was like, "Don't preach." So,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Oh, thank you. I think for me it can be hard because it's these days it's not overt. So if someone thinks that women can't direct or can't make a film or whatever, they're never going to say that. You can usually tell by their hiring practices or things like that. But I think that, so I've come across people like that. But I've also I think the things that I've faced, it's like there's always going to be a reason that someone's going to tell you you can't do it when it comes to film, especially, or art. There are always like gatekeepers. And I remember when I was making my first short film, the big thing was like, well, you've never directed before, are you sure? Because I studied writing. I kind of started as a writer, so some people were like, are you sure? Do you want to maybe get a director and you're just the writer on this? And I was like, no, like I really stood my ground because I just thought, I could see into the future, and I was like, say I don't direct this and I'm the writer, it's like great, I get a writing credit, but then first of all, I don't have that control and I don't get that directing experience. But then I also, down the road, I want to make another short film. It's going to be the same conversation. Like, oh, well, you've never directed before. Maybe you shouldn't, So it's like you really have to just push past that and, keep pushing against that. And then when I came to making this film as my first feature, I had similar, a lot of people saying this, not just men. It wasn't just, sexism necessarily. I think it was a lot of things, a lot of people just projecting their own insecurities onto me and their own limitations of just like, oh, well, you shouldn't, like pieces are hard, they're a lot of work, you should make more short films, or, those kinds of things where it's just kind of like, where is this coming from? And
Stay in your place, honey.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, you really have to push past that and not let anyone, hold you back or put their limitations on you, whether it's sexism or something else. Just against it.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, it's a.
I was just gonna say I agree in that a lot of times, you become more of an observational person, and you kind of get these things implied on you as somebody who could maybe be the backup person to make a decision, or maybe they don't believe that you can make a decision in the first place, or it's more assumed. I think the word that I think of a lot is assumed that, perhaps a male with experience, or a male in general, would assume a technical role or would assume a director role, whereas we sort of have to find our put aside the fear, and find our words, and find our ability to step forward and say, I know how to do that, I would like to try that, and that kind of thing. And that can be really hard to just know how to do. Everybody has a different personality that has nothing to do with our gender. And so that's where, us supporting each other is super important, and to recognize people's individual talents and push our fellow female filmmakers forward when we see it. But the other thing I wanted to say is, I know with my own experience with my film, and I'm a little bit of an oddball. I've been doing video and other work outside of filmmaking for a very long time, which included video shoots and things like that. To me, I think this is difficult to say because I may get pushback on this, but I don't necessarily know that the answer is to, have an all-female crew, except for very specific situations. And I actually think, Robin, yours is one of them. The film really lent itself to exactly what you did. But I think there's a role for everybody, and this is the way it should have been throughout the history of time. There should always have been collaboration on crews between male and female professionals. But, now we find ourselves fighting back to the point where we're just going to say, we're pushing all the men away, we're going to take over. And I think that's the wrong approach in general. I know a lot of really talented male filmmakers, and they're very open to the idea of collaboration. They've lifted me up. And so I think it's more about finding the right people and the right mix of people, and knowing instinctively, or just having those relationships where there's not going to be any of that BS going on. And that's also a difficult thing, but I think that's important to keep in mind. And I've had a conversation with some male filmmakers and mentioned some of the things that I'm doing. And the first comment that came out of one of their mouths was, well, don't forget about us. And so it's interesting because now there's this role reversal. It's like, well, we know what that feels like, But I think the answer, as tough as it can be, is not to just completely say, all female this way, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, just because everyone, like we said, everyone has a different perspective. And so to completely push out the male perspective isn't the answer. I've worked with some great men, especially on my movie, and that, gave a lot of good input. So.
It's interesting you say that, because I don't think it's more about pushing the men away. Maybe for some people it is because they've had such bad experiences. But for me, I guess working with an all-female crew is such a new thing. Like working with all women, and I've obviously I've worked with a lot of nice guys. I mean, I welcome male-directed films in the film festival, like if they have a female protagonist. But at the same time, it's just such a new experience to like work with almost all women, and in a way, it's a relief, and it's something I don't get often. So that's why I tend to enjoy it.
I don't think that your question was about necessarily alienating men or males. I just think that what you were getting at is as far as the people who make decisions to actually advance your career and how it can be stifling. That's what I took from it. And so for me, what I would suggest for women or girls, do as much as you can yourself, learn as much as you can yourself. And that way, you will attract the right kind of people. to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so then it would be less about gender in that aspect because it's just a grind, period. You know, I think
Mm-hmm.
I think the other point is that a lot of times people think that it's gonna be somebody that they meet that's gonna like put them on or help them out or and it's really your peers and it's you that put yourself on and then your peers are the ones that so if you earn the respect from your peers and you work with your peers then that's how it happens. So I think a lot of that is kind of some sort of it coincides some kind of way. I think as far as like what you want to do and how what movie you want to make. And I mean I've literally, like I think I told you before, Andrea, I've literally paid to help people for free, and it's just like sometimes people don't want to give you that respect because there is a difference between a man and a male. And a lot of times you get stuck with these beta males in these positions. So I mean but that's just a whole nother animal. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just learn as much as you can. Do as much as you can yourself, and then that way, and you don't really, you'll draw the people who want to help you if you have a vision or if you have something that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. If you're just very solid in yourself, generally,
Yeah.
and just know as much as possible, generally, that goes a long way towards
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
because nobody's gonna like nobody help. Even like I told you before, we helped a lot of and like I literally did like the camp everything. Like there was I had no crew whatsoever. There's one day, the first day was just crazy, and then after that, then it was like here and there, it was like something, but it was like it was just me and the cast. So like the more you get to know and do yourself, then like you're not be thinking about this dude told me. And it's the last thing because you just pick the camera up, put it on a tripod, and do it yourself. Do as much as you can yourself. You will attract the right people.
I think
Get her
that's
done, as they say where I'm from.
Yes, yes,
just
yes.
do it.
Yeah.
The catchier slogan.
Yeah.
Paula, we haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, well, so I haven't had like the privilege to work with the crew and the projects that I've done. A lot of my work right now is like personal and exploration and like ancestry. But in this project, for the interviews, I did have two of the high school interns, men who helped with the audio. And it was interesting because I think because I'm constantly working like with youth, it's all about like passing on this knowledge. So it's all like we're all collaborators. But I think in general, it's always gonna be like you kind of as a woman, and especially like for me, I'm Latinx, that they kind of expect this narrative or this story from you, this structure. And I can just see that anywhere. I mean, even in like past jobs when I was bartending and serving, like men will talk to you a certain way, especially if they've been drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now I want to bring it back to the more positive note. Now that we've gotten the sexism out of the way, Sorry, I'd like you all to tell me what you love most about filmmaking, about what you do.
I think for me, it's escapism.
Mm-hmm.
I feel blessed that I really tapped into the creative part of my brain, which I feel everybody has, and it's just a huge escape for me. Even when it feels like or should be work, to be able to get away from just the enormity of the world and the issues and the responsibilities. To me, it just allows me to go somewhere else, and it also helps me through things. So that's the best.
Cathartic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, for me, it's very therapeutic, and like filmmaking has helped me work through like a lot of trauma and just a lot of upsetting things. I can throw it into art of any form, not necessarily filmmaking. I like painting, but I find it really there's a catharsis with like taking it out of your brain and putting it into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel that too. For me, it's very much about, writing and getting a story out is about, working through different things. Whether it's a lot of times it's something I'm afraid of in some way. But yeah, it's working through that. And then when it comes to being on set and directing, there's really nothing like the first day, especially of being there after writing for so long and then coming to set, seeing everything, like all the setups and everything, and then calling action the first time. Like, there's nothing like that. Nothing compares to that.
Yeah, something coming to fruition. That's like a weird thing, right?
Right.
When you write something and then you go on set and then like you imagine it a certain way and then you go and then you get to, especially like if you're like independent, you don't have like a set that's built. Yeah. So that is kind of a cool thing where in your brain it's something else, but then it morphs into something else. So that I get you on that.
Yeah, exactly. And just like when, the actors, like you're finally seeing the actors breathe life into these characters. They've just been in your head for so long. And so many times they surprise me with like the way they deliver a line or do something where it's like, oh my God, I wasn't thinking of it that way, but that's so much better.
Yeah, or like, or you'll write something and then the actor will interpret the movie. Like I had one scene where it wasn't even supposed to be that aggressive, but the actor was really aggro, like he jacked the dude, like he was, and I couldn't really contain myself. I kind of got into like a laughing fit because that wasn't really, but he took it and just so I get you on that. Yeah, it's good. The actors do breathe life into your work, and it's good when an actor nails it, like so. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the exploration. I love doing research and just going into like a rabbit hole of material that has to do with whatever I'm hitting on. And then I think just there, like organically, like the theme will start unraveling or it will kind of create itself. I really enjoy research and exploration.
Mm-hmm. Oh, have we heard from everybody? I'm starting to lose track.
No.
I'm not drinking. I'm not totally not drinking.
I guess for me, I really like the grind. Like I like the work. I like to be working. My dad was a production designer and set dresser before he retired for a very long time. And I grew up on sets with him, like watching this really intense work ethic. And I mean, I love the creativity, but I love working. I love, particularly now that I'm not working with crews, I love the process of editing. I can just totally get lost in the edit, regardless of what else is going on in my life, and just, get sucked into that. I guess that is a form of escapism, but I also worked as an AD for a long time, and that is like so much about work and less about creativity, and I thrive on that.
Plus, I do think there's so many stories that need to be told. So for me, it's definitely the stories because I think that sometimes people forget that people actually want to be taken to a different place. That's what it's supposed to be about. Like you want to go somewhere different or something. I mean, you don't want to stay in the same place. So,
Yeah, people. Yeah, the industry seems to think that people want the same thing they've seen before, but in some sense that's true. We want nice fluffy stories sometimes, especially now, but we also don't want all of the same thing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stories. I guess the answer to your question is that because people want to inspire people with stories that haven't been told or need to be told. I think that, and so in that sense, it's cathartic, I guess, for the artist and all of us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Like the way you guys work, like has it changed recently, like post Me Too, let's say post 2016?
No, not for me. I mean, how I roll is how I roll, So, I mean, Me Too. That's I mean, because I feel like women have power and they manage to relinquish it a lot to me. Just as my personal opinion. You know, you have to work for what you want, okay, and you and don't compromise, okay, and that's just it. If you do that, everything's good. You know, when you start looking, you know, maybe, or, you know, that, to me, I just feel like the Me Too movement is kind of like, yeah, women do get, you know, taken advantage of. They do. You know, this is, you know, women don't have the numbers, you know, and women, that's why I'm so happy about this film festival. And thank you very much, because a lot of women, sometimes they don't support each other. We don't support each other like we should. And maybe it's not women, maybe it's girls, you know. Maybe women do support each other, but girls don't. I don't know. But I just feel like the Me Too thing is like, you know, you have the flip side of the coin where, you know, you compromised yourself. You know, you shouldn't have been put in that position to have to do that, and that was wrong. But, you know, let that be a lesson to all the girls and the females coming up. Just do your work, and don't compromise.
For me, I was a freshman in college in 2016, and then the Me Too movement happened, and I think by that point I was a sophomore, and I think it kind of inspired me in a way where it was just kind of exhilarating to see a lot of women kind of speaking up for not the first time, but for the first time on such a large scale, in terms of like social media. It wasn't, I don't disagree with you, Shalise, but and I think that just inspired a lot of my work and inspired a lot of my work ethic throughout my college experience, because, and not just that, but a lot of just like my experiences in film school being a woman were not ideal. And so I think things like that pushed me to just be like, I'm gonna make what I want, I'm gonna say what I want, and and the right people will come behind me, and they'll stand with me, and we'll make cool stuff together.
Right. I think that's more the activism side of it and the actual speaking up, because a lot of girls do get assaulted in college. You know, it's a slippery slope. But like, I guess I was referring more to the flip side of actual working. You know, the Me Too thing came about with, you know, women feeling like in order for them to get a job, you know, they had to do some foul stuff. You know,
or to make their voices heard
right,
because of the gatekeeper.
right.
For the
So that's
most
kind
part,
of like,
men were the gatekeepers, and if they
yeah,
don't say yes, you don't
yeah.
get to be heard.
Right. And so that's kind of like where I was getting at, is like, you know, but I agree with you, Robin, that that does your cute smile. It does it does like inspire women and girls to speak up, because sometimes stuff happens and you don't say anything because you don't think anybody's gonna believe you, or you're afraid. And so in that aspect of it, it's amazing, you know. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, me too definitely is power in numbers, you know, groves of women coming out, and if one says something, another one feels more comfortable. And I think that was the power of it. Obviously any movement is, but I can't really speak to anything changing in my world filmmaking wise because I'm so new to it. So
I think it also keeps these men accountable.
True.
Finally, they're, I mean, because these are really rich men with a lot of power. And now, you know, it's being unveiled of all the horrible things they will do. I think like the same as Marissa, it hasn't changed my filmmaking, but like how Robin said, it's like, who's with me is with me.
I have to say that like working on sets, on like a big scale where like media and reporting comes into it, there are changes, but I feel like a lot of them are for show because these people still get big payouts, work in the industry, still get jobs. On a smaller scale, I've worked on many sets where I've made complaints and nothing has been done. you know, 2017 through 2019. So I feel like things have changed, but not enough. And like women still aren't taken seriously, whether it's in an academic setting when they lodge a complaint, whether it's on a set. You know, there's systematic issues that still haven't changed enough for women to be taken seriously, even if there are multiple women lodging the same complaint. Like I've had issues with that. Yeah, I mean, like I think Me Too was great, and I just don't think that it's gone far enough. I think it kind of like had a really big uptick and then it's kind of stalled for the most part.
I second all of that.
Yeah.
Lauren, we haven't heard much from you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I hadn't done much work before 2016 either, so it didn't change that much. And obviously, before then, I was still, you know, wanted to make women's stories and work on, you know, and not even necessarily like thinking about it that way. It's just, you know, the stories that I write tend to center women, or, you know, my protagonists tend to be female, so. It's just like my own perspective, but I think you know it made me a little more aware and thinking about, you know, and a lot of the conversations that stemmed off of that, and just the fact that we're still working on so much gender disparity and all that stuff, that I think it made me a lot more aware, and like we talked about, not necessarily pushing men away, but I do want to, you know, make more of an effort to work with more women, especially in, you know, bigger other like key creative roles and like cinematography and stuff like that, because I actually still haven't worked with a female cinematographer, and I'd love to do that. So
it's great.
Yeah.
I've worked with one who's like the first on my call list when I start working with crews again. She's absolutely amazing, and it's a completely different experience to working with a male cinematographer. And I've worked with some great male cinematographers, but like, female cinematographers, like that's my jam.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
And how do you think Milwaukee, because from my perspective, like it's no secret that Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the US. So how, like, I live in Chicago, and it's not to say that's not segregated, but I come back to Milwaukee and it's like schizophrenic, the segregation here. I'm not trying to dump on Milwaukee because I keep my film festival here. I like Milwaukee, but also it needs to make improvements. So I know Milwaukee's trying, but how do you think Milwaukee can improve, ladies?
Wow. Ooh,
Like,
that is like a
loaded question.
Well, part of the reason I started the film festival, because I wanted.
Man, it is. Ooh, like speaking for somebody that was born and raised here, it is just really intrinsic. I'm gonna tell you that. Like I said before, it is like this overwhelming need to exalt yourself from, you know, to over other group of people. I think it does start though with, you know, pockets of groups of people, you know, that have the same you know, ideology, or, you know, you're not going to always agree on everything, but agree to disagree, and, you know, push forward, and, you know, and whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether it's a film festival or I don't know, like maybe a volunteering, or, you know, or helping people who have food, or, but that's the way it is, that this is just this pocket of space. I'm not saying it's going to always be that way. No matter what family, like I have a huge family. There's a lot of multicultural families such as mine, but still somehow, some way, there's that thing there. And that's to me, I think what it is obviously there's systemic racism. So you have to deal with that. But the way you start is the way you finish. So if the tree, the root in the tree you put in the ground is kind of messed up, well then, you know, and I think people expect this beautiful flower when they haven't really got to the roots. And they don't want to look at that. You know, you try to tell somebody, oh, you know, well, that's slavery. Well, that happened. Get over it. You know, or you got raped. Well, get over it. Well, okay, well, you're a woman and you can't get the same pay. Well, get over it. You know, and there's that. And I
pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right. Put your big girl panties on and keep it pushing. And I feel like a lot of times people have power and they relinquish it every time. And that is the thing, you know. don't compromise your integrity of your power, and then find some other people that feel that way, and then keep it pushing. That's how I feel about it. And that's the only way you'll make a difference. But you have to acknowledge the problem. You have to get to the root. Nobody wants to do that. That there's systemic racism, there's sexism, there's colorism. You can go on and on with the isms. But until you actually acknowledge, people don't even want to acknowledge, and then that's the problem. So with Milwaukee, I mean, God bless you. We just keep it pushing. But yeah, that's the way it's been. It's been like this for a really long time.
I think you nailed it with the acknowledgement piece because,
Yeah.
To your question, Andrea, I think it's really overwhelming to a lot of people who are aware of certain things and do acknowledge them. And then it's like, okay, now what? Like, just the idea of like, a whole city, film or otherwise, starting to open and expand their horizons and connect and cross-pollinate. But I think somebody like you, Andrea, are a perfect example. I think we each just need to think about our particular selves and what we're doing in our roles, and not always defaulting to, what we know. So, for instance, when I'm ready to do my next film, instead of just calling all the same people, there might be some people that I know absolutely I want them, but not to stop there and say, who else can I bring in? Who can come in as an apprentice? Who can, and think about all of the people that could benefit from that, or expand the horizon, my own horizons, and bring in all types of different people. And I think if each person thinks that way, things begin to grow and expand out of those roots, like you said. But I think you're a perfect example of saying, okay, it's going to start with me. I'm going to put together a film festival for female filmmakers. And so if everybody did a little bit of that, I think it would get better. But it's really hard, like you said, for people to even acknowledge it. Because I think they fear that that's going to change their world in a way that might affect them negatively, when that's not the case at all.
Yep.
Yeah, so. Well, I kind of had to do that from the beginning, because like when I was selecting my jury and seeing my films, I was like, okay, list of jurors. I'm like, wait a minute, because I realized the jurors, frankly, all the jurors I had selected for like the first film, I'm like, these are all white. And I'm not sure if they were all straight, but I'm like, okay, I need other perspectives. I need to expand. So I feel like, you know what? It's not that hard. It's not that hard to do. People are out there working. You just have to go and look,
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge in yourself that, you need to do more.
Yeah.
And just do it. Google makes it, frankly, quite much easier than it used to be.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tapping your network as well. I think you both, like Marissa touched on, it starts with us. And I think that, on the one hand, it can be frustrating because it's like, as women, we have been pushed out of the film industry for a long time. We're not given a lot of opportunities. And so for it to be like, oh, we have to be the ones to do it, that can be kind of like hard to say, or like a frustrating perspective. But I think on the other hand, we just like, it's more about not waiting for someone to give you an opportunity. Like we've talked about in other parts of this conversation, it's just about like making your own way, and also looking out and being like, okay, where can I help, bring on other women of color specifically, people of color, just like, how do I bring in so that my crew has a lot of different perspectives, and it's not just like a lot of people that look like me, or a lot of, men or whatever. It's just like bringing in that diversity as much as we can is going to help.
And there's so much power in that, and it really enriches your project. Like if people knew that, like I think that because it is male dominant, it's really such a kind of a me first selfish thing, and I'm going to put my friends on, and that's why everything is in the toilet. Because I mean, you put your friends on, and the content's not moving, and it's the same stuff. And the industry, music and film is like all the way here because you're with your friends, and we already know how that goes. Guys get together and it doesn't matter. They're off into some other thing, which is cool, but you need to be able to break that up. And even like I told you before, Andrea, we literally like really helped a lot of people, and I still I still had to I still didn't get the respect. I had to literally check people and take myself out of it and start all over again, and then do the film all by myself.
Oh,
So
wow.
then start to build up again, and then build totally new people. And then so then they are approaching me from this aspect. Okay, she's a writer, she's director, blase Skippy. And sometimes you have to do that, but not everybody will have the fortitude to do it. But even if you feel like you can't do it, you can do it. You start slow. Get a write a small bit, and take it from there. But yeah, that definitely comes from that me putting my friends on type of thing, that I think that the industry is like so stifled like that. So it does really help that when women, you teach one, reach one, so on and so forth.
I think we need to start calling people out on their bullshit, like on a micro level, like friends, family members, coworkers, calling men out on their sexism, calling white people out on their fucking racism. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear here, but like, I feel like too often it's just easier not to say anything, and like, it's wrong, but you're like, oh, I just can't be bothered. But I think it's really important. I mean, obviously not if you're in a position where you could lose your job that you need over it, but more than you do, I think we need to call people out on their bigotry in all aspects. And I think until we start doing that consistently, I don't think things are going to change very much.
True that. And then take yourself out of the situation. Sometimes you have to leave. Sometimes you're not gonna always have be around people that you helped or are supposed to be your friends. If it don't feel right, if they're not helping you, do what you gotta do.
Robin, Paula, I don't think we've heard from you on this.
Yeah, well, since you started off with like segregation in Milwaukee, I think that's rooted in capitalism and white supremacy, and there's all of these layers that go into it. But when like thinking about filmmaking, I think it's also like making it accessible. So I think just because I work with like high school students, sharing all the knowledge that I have and making sure they have the tools to express themselves if they want to, like through film. I think that's really important to like destroy some of these barriers and allow them to express their voice in however they want.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have a whole lot of new information to add to this because I think everyone's made such great points. But I think specifically with storytelling, it's just important to become kind of introspective and understand that your story is not the only perspective that matters, and everyone's perspective is equally as important. And you need to kind of it's hard because sometimes you can be really attached to something that you've made, and then you have to sit back a little bit and be like, how is this going to be received? How can I make this more, like Paula said, accessible? How can I make this more how can I make it more representative of a lot of different people rather than just my own experience? Yeah, and there's a lot of issues in Milwaukee. I've only lived here since 2016, but I'm from the Twin Cities in Minnesota. There's a lot of issues there too, and I think Shalise said it so well when she explained with it's in the root of the problem, and we can't just focus on fixing the branches or the things that aren't growing correctly. They're not, because it's ingrained in the system, and there's a lot that needs to be completely reconstructed because it wasn't built with everybody's perspective in mind. Right. And
it was built to fail.
Yeah.
Everything was built to fail for the general, population for the most part. It's kind of like what legal threat touches on, and so many different nuances. The system was built to fail.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely second what Paula said about like the systems have been built on capitalism and white supremacy, and that's why they only protect a very tiny little subset of the population. And like, we got to rebuild them. You can't just let things going the way that they are and think changing little things is going to make a big difference. It's not. Like, we have to tear everything down and build it up again.
The fact, uproot it, replant.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, with about the last five minutes we have, because I want to keep this to an hour, I want to take it back to what you ladies have created, all your films, and I want you to tell me like what you want them to take from it.
Where are we starting with? Me?
Yes, let's start with you then.
Okay. It's been a little while since I made this film, so I do feel a little bit distanced from it, but I think what I want people to get out of it is that things that happen to anyone's body or mind are worth talking about. We don't have to hide anything. And even the things that are a little bit gross or a little bit scary or uncomfortable, everyone has, I don't know, a lot of people relate to it, and it's worth talking about because somebody will find something in it.
Shalise?
Legal threat, I mean, is it a dream? That's pretty much all I have to say about that. Is it a dream?
You just have to watch.
There you go.
Amber?
I just want people to re-examine or examine for the first time maybe the way that they engage with violence, particularly the way they consume it for entertainment, whether that be true crime, like real violence, or, fictionalized violence. I really want people to have a think about the way that they engage with that in society, because I think once we start doing that, we might be able to reduce a little bit of real life violence. Not saying that entertainment, fictionalized violence causes real life violence. It doesn't. But this obsession with violence and the glorifying and almost sexualizing it, I think that does have
definitely sexualizing it.
Yeah,
and it's a reflection of something.
Yeah, I think that has a larger impact.
Lauren?
Yeah, for me, I mean, with cohabitation, one thing that I was thinking about when I was writing it was just the fact that, we all have good and evil inside us, really, and it's really, I mean, your life circumstances contribute to that, but I think ultimately you have the choice to, go one way or the other, and so I think it's ultimately about that, and I think it's interesting. I'd like people to kind of examine that within themselves, like the good parts, the evil parts. What are you, giving energy to? What are you feeding? And then also just that there's always a way to move forward.
Also background checks.
Yeah, be careful who you live with, I guess.
Yes.
I know, yeah.
And Paula?
I think for summer school, it's recognizing that young people hold so much power, Black and brown young people hold so much power and a trust.
And last but not least, Marissa.
I guess I think because, especially when loss comes in a very sudden and tragic form, people don't really have time to process how they feel, and they feel very alone. So I really want the film to be a validation for people who go through that kind of thing. And also I hope that people who haven't been through that type of thing feel a little closer to those who have and can have a better understanding of what that's like.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining me on this, and thank you for bearing with me. on this. So yeah, and thank you for allowing me to have your film on the Film Girl Film Festival.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Does that conclude our interview?
Yep, I'm ending the broadcast.
All right. Bye,
Bye.
Robin.